Nearly 16 hours later, I finished Sonic Frontiers, and after this time I spent with it, I would have to say that it's probably the best Sonic game we've gotten since Generations. Maybe even Adventure 1, as bold of a claim that is. It's great, and there are several different things that bring it to that point. Of course, it's not a perfect game, but I do recommend it to any Sonic fan out there. But this is a special case where I don't think I can convey what I want to without talking about every aspect of the game. So you can jump to my closing thoughts to avoid any kind of spoilers, because I won't be holding anything back with this one. This is Sonic Frontiers. An open-world Sonic game. It's a weird thing to think about, but Sonic Adventure and 06 were basically knocking on that door already, except with far less success. And if it hadn't been for a certain revolutionary take on the open-world formula that a certain legendary game series attempted back in 2017, Sonic Frontiers probably wouldn't be the game that it is today. Because yeah, there's plenty of Breath of the Wild DNA in this game. The abundance of little items that help to improve the things Sonic can do, for instance, and even visual things like the boost meter being identical to Link's stamina meter is telling. Don't take this as a slight against the game though, I think this type of thing works well for Sonic. The open world— let me stop you right there, me. I know this is an open zone game, but it's an open world game. The islands are smaller than your typical open world, so it's kind of quirky and fun to call them something else, but for all intents and purposes, this is an open world game. Yeah, the open world is a good fit for Sonic. Each of the 3 islands are jam-packed with different bite-sized challenges to overcome. Whether it's a small puzzle, a race to a certain point, or a game of laser jump rope, these activities usually only take 1 to 2 minutes to clear. This works into how Sonic progresses through the islands as well. The goal is to find gears to unlock portals to cyberspace. Completing requirements in cyberspace rewards keys to Chaos Emeralds, and Chaos Emeralds are how you unlock the boss fight for each island to move on to the next one. And the bite-sized challenges around the island can reward you with any of these except for Chaos Emeralds, so it's almost always worth it to spend a second completing one. Again, I'm not personally huge on the open world structure, I think it's been done to death, and this year alone we've seen franchise after franchise commit hardcore to the formula. But as far as they go, I think Sonic is built for this type of setup. I'd say a good 75% of the game is Sonic running around the islands looking for trouble to get himself into. It makes for good means to allow Sonic to level up all of his stats through the activities the player wants to do. And they did a good job of allowing him to be Sonic while he does all of this. It does look a little weird for these structures to just be floating around the islands. It kind of clashes with everything, but it also makes for easy creativity while exploring. There were so many times where I cleared one jungle gym and was shot out of a launch ring, or used the speed from a grind rail to fly right to the end of another challenge and snag that reward for myself in an unintentional way. Little shortcuts like that are everywhere. Even as early as the tutorial, I was pulling this stuff off. It's fun to feel like you're cheating, but the game totally has these little things intentionally available to the player. The mini playgrounds that you ping pong between are great at helping you find collectibles to progress, but also shoot you in the direction of your next activity. It's very easy to get distracted on the islands, but in the best possible way, and getting to these distractions is a big part of the fun, and that all comes down to how Sonic controls. I am slightly disappointed that we're still utilizing the boost, but it feels decidedly less important here than it ever has. Baby steps, I guess. But other than that, Sonic has all of his boost era abilities. The homing attack is here and functions as it always has, except it's back on a separate button to make way for the double jump, which actually feels like a double jump this time, not a momentum sponge. The stomp is here to get you back onto the ground quickly. Quick stepping is here, and it's more automated than in Unleashed and Generations. It feels very colors and forces, but it's alright. The Lightspeed dash is back and pretty reliable. I like that it's on the left stick now. I think it feels really natural, and I'd be okay if it stays there for the foreseeable future. For the first time in a 3D game, we have the drop dash, and it's actually pretty good at helping Sonic chain movement together. He feels good to control overall. The leveling up of his stats had me worried at first, but it's pretty negligible all things considered. I'm sure he did get faster from level 1 when I started up until level 20 when I stopped, but it wasn't anything that I vividly picked up on, because again, I didn't think he was noticeably slow to start. I always make it a habit to look at the settings menu when I play any new game, so I had all of Sonic's settings cranked up from the start. The only issues I have with Sonic's movement comes down to nitpicks, really. The lack of any inertia on the ground is a bit of a disappointment. You could be using the super boost and ripping through the island, but the moment you let go of that analog stick, Sonic will just stop.
That's weird.
It's so confusing because if you boost off a cliff or something and it has a lip, Sonic will just stay stuck to it and run down the cliff. But if there's a sharp drop off, then he'll perform this little flippy-do that cuts his speed for a second. That got annoying. It makes it hard to just get from point A to B when every little rock or environmental set dress causes Sonic to bust a move and enter his trick state. Other than those little hangups though, Sonic is pretty smooth. Movement isn't nearly as stiff as it has been in the previous Boost games, and we almost feel like we're back to adventure movement, excluding the exclusion of the Boost, of course. And that's fantastic because these fancy new Cyberspace levels really like Sonic Adventure 2's level design. And yeah, it sucks that there are only 4 aesthetics that these things are beholden to, but it's not a big deal to me. Of course, I would love it if all these levels had their own look, but there are a lot of them. Actual quality notwithstanding, but I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a healthy amount of these levels that wholesale rip chunks from Sonic and Shadow's action stages in SA2. Now, I really don't mind this because those more linear stages in that game translate surprisingly well into Boost gameplay. I think my favorite had to be this version of Radical Highway, and Metal Harbor was great too. I also noticed a few chunks from Generations and Unleashed as well. These are fantastic stages by the by, but then we have the levels that are exactly the kind of Sonic stage I don't care for. The barely over a minute long excursions that don't feel like they have any time to really get going. It was one of my main issues with both Colors and Forces. But due to the pick your poison structure of Frontiers, you don't have to play these things more than once if you don't want to. But again, the 3D ones, and especially the original 3D ones, were such a treat. My favorite Cyberspace level was definitely 4-4. It just had a little bit of everything for me. And you know what? It bums me out that these standout levels have no identity on their own. And I don't mean in the visual department, that should be obvious. I mean more so in the set piece department. If you ask anyone what they remember about Speed Highway, they're gonna tell you about the run down the side of that building. If you ask someone what they remember about Jungle Joyride, they're gonna tell you about running across the water at 15 frames per second. The original Cyberspace levels that I actually like don't have anything like this, and even the copied levels from Adventure 2 have a lot of the excitement and energy ripped away from them. The stages were fun to run through, and I'm glad they're in the game, but I don't think anyone is going to remember any of these levels after the game is shut off. Again, Cyberspace was a net positive overall. I don't think there were any levels that I didn't enjoy, just some that I liked a lot more than others. However, I had a feeling I would be saying that since I saw those reveal trailers. The one thing I've been trying to put my finger on since it was revealed was the combat system, so let's get into it. Sonic really hasn't been in action like this in a while, huh? Not counting fan games, I don't think Sonic has gotten this handsy since Sonic Battle on the GBA. But damn man, he still got it. Sonic starts all of his combos with a homing attack. After sticking to the target, he'll perform a short string of punches and kicks before delivering a finishing hit. He also has this new little move called the Psy Loop. While holding down the triangle or Y button, he'll begin trailing cyber energy behind him. It can be used to interact with stuff in the environment, but it's also a big part of Sonic's offense. Regular enemies caught in the Psy Loop will be launched, leaving them wide open for a follow-up in the air. An evade can get behind the enemy if they're blocking, but if they have a shield, you'll need to use the Psy Loop to get rid of it. Parrying is a big part of Sonic's kit too, but there's a little secret I had to find out for myself. This parry doesn't work like most parries. You don't have to perfectly time the technique right before the attack lands for it to work. You just have to be facing the enemy, and you can hold down the shoulder buttons and wait for the attack to come to you. And then as soon as it does, Sonic will automatically counter it. I got smacked around so much due to the lack of this knowledge. Building on this moveset though, Sonic gets several different options through a skill tree that are all usable at any time during a fight, if you can remember their button combinations. I'm very grateful that these attacks are all mapped to different button combos. It can get a little confusing at times, but having access to all of the attacks at any time is great. Now, I should show a little objectivity here. There isn't a single one of these moves that is required to beat any type of enemy. Every enemy can be taken out with the basic homing attack combo and the Psy Loop. But the moves you can unlock add this quality to the combat system that's more of what I would call fluff. But I like the fluff, so it's okay. What I mean by that is, a lot of the moves do very similar things. Cyclone Kick and Spin Slash are both big damage multi-hit spinning moves. Sonic Boom shoots these projectiles while Sonic is stationary, but then when you get Cross Slash, it does more damage and Sonic orbits around the enemy, so I see it as an upgrade in every way. But even with these little snags, I think this combat system is really fun to mess around with. Another little thing that I discovered that made this even more fun to tinker with is the fact that every special attack can be cancelled by a dodge. This means that heavy hitting attacks that usually have ending animations lasting a few seconds can be cancelled. Using the dodge button will reset Sonic, allowing him to go into different special attacks immediately or swap over to launch another enemy. This can help make short work of the mini-bosses of the world, and as simple as it is, it can be a lot of fun to cancel attacks, dodge behind enemies, and parry with proficiency. I was surprised that this game had difficulty settings when I booted it up, and you know I had to pick the hard mode. I don't know exactly what the difficulty did because I didn't notice much of a challenge, but that's okay. The only fight I truly got stuck on was the first Titan encounter. Sonic's basic attacks didn't do enough damage to win the fight even with perfect dodges, but I learned that parrying the Titan's attack did a large amount of damage. I couldn't seem to consistently get the timing down though, and this was before I knew you could just hold down the input, so I lost some time here. Other than that though, the Titan fights were incredible. I don't remember the last time Super Sonic has been treated with this much respect. The amount of raw as badassery on display here had my jaw on the floor. Like I was going nuts over this right here.
Ooh, that was f***ing dope.
The mini-bosses were pretty good too. Each of them had their own little gimmick and you can fight the same one a few different times around their respective island. I did start to get a little bored with the shark encounters because it was the only one that wouldn't die the first time I stunned it. It had to take me through 2 phases of this whole dragging me around thing. But other than that, there were cool little optional challenges. The mini-bosses are actually the best example for something I want to discuss regarding some of the game's weird moments. So, the mini-bosses have to be destroyed by attacking it, obviously, but a lot of these fights incorporate some sort of chase beforehand. Some make you run on a 3-lane track, some have a rail grinding challenge, and some have whole obstacle courses to get through. It's when the marrying of combat and platforming appeared that I noticed things like the small delay between each homing attack, or the fact that there's no momentum whenever you start running. These little things give the feeling that Sonic's moveset was tweaked and balanced to accommodate 3 separate types of play: the open world exploration, the high-speed platforming of cyberspace, and the quick close quarters combat. These facets of Sonic Frontiers, I don't want to say they clash, but they can feel at odds with each other at times. When exploring a fully open and 3D environment just to hit a spring or a ramp which locks you into a 2D section, and there's no way to bail on these once you start, there were several instances where I was just trying to get somewhere faster by using one of these, only to change my mind afterwards, whether that's because I noticed it's not taking me in the direction I thought it was going to, or I saw something that caught my eye. It was a little annoying to be stuck like this when it especially doesn't make sense. I would personally love to see 2D sections gone forever, but that's not what we're talking about right now. I can see why the team would want to keep them for the cyberspace levels. The boost formula has a track record for 2D sections, and I'm sure good 2D level design is a little less labor intensive to create than good 3D level design. But this type of thing flies right in the face of the freedom the open world gives to the player. The camera changes also mess with me. There were more than a few times where I was going to catch a mini-boss in a sick as hell way, but the boss's little title card camera zoom screwed me up, and there were more than a few awkward angles that I had to work with. It's just moments like these which make me think there had to be compromises in Sonic's moveset and the way the game functions to accommodate for all of these playstyles. But I think the most impressive thing about this is that it works as well as it does. The little things I mentioned are just that, little things. The fact that a Sonic the Hedgehog moveset feels good enough to accommodate Unleashed style levels, adventure style levels, and combat that heroes wished it had is an achievement. It probably took tons of refinement and fine-tuning over a long period of time to get to the point that it's at. Okay. Let's talk about the story now. Sonic Frontiers focuses on everyone's favorite joke-cracking Hedgehog getting trapped on the mysterious Starfall Islands. Tails, Amy, and Knuckles also find themselves trapped, but in their own special way. A mysterious girl has also appeared and continues to tell Sonic to leave the islands. Of course, he doesn't listen and eventually saves the day, and that's all well and good, but the thing is, that's only set dressing here. For the first time in forever, characters in a Sonic game are neck and neck for being the most engaging part of the game. Everyone is written with such sincerity and respect for all of their past events that this feels like a celebration of the past. Sonic Frontiers is to the adventure era what Sonic Mania is to the classic games. Amy actually talks to Sonic and informs him of their situation. Knuckles opens up about how lonely he's been guarding the Master Emerald for all of these years. Being the last of the Echidna has actually gotten to him. He's lonely and confesses that to Sonic. But of course, Sonic tells him that yeah, he might be the last of the Echidna, but he's never alone. And yes! This is exactly what I've begged for. This is the best Sonic and Knuckles relationship has been since probably forever. And Tails recognizes that Sonic always having to save him isn't helping him grow, so he vows that he's going to leave for a while and come back as a new man next time. That's awesome. Character development. You love to see it. And there are plenty of little nuances that I'm skimming over, but they're all fantastic. These characters are written so well. Then we have Sage and Eggman. Sage was created by Eggman as an infiltration program to extract data on the Ancients, but he gets stuck in cyberspace just like Sonic's friends and only has Sage to talk to. These little scenes we get of them plotting and just talking to one another had me glued to my screen every time. It's nothing insane, but their budding relationship is so sweet. Eggman mentions that he's catching feelings and is actually proud of how good of a job she's doing, and it's just, oh boy, you see their relationship grow into this parental thing with a mutual respect bundled in, and that's just not what I expected to see from this game. And then the optional Eggman memos you can get from Big's fishing minigame are filled to the brim with Easter eggs and callbacks, and one of them mentions Maria and how Eggman never got to actually meet her. It describes her as a wonderful and sweet person, and there are implications that imply Eggman was inspired to make Sage with the qualities of Maria. That is a bundle of emotions for longtime fans that have heard literally nothing of this since the year 2005. And then we get to the climax, and the act of Sage's sacrifice isn't what breaks my heart. It's the words she and Eggman share and don't share that do it. When he tells her to go fulfill her function, you can tell that he's only using such a stiff, proper term because he knows he's gonna lose her. And then, in the aftermath, when the stars are raining down and he knows she succeeded, he can't do anything but just watch as he's crushed and proud all at one time. This ending did it for me, guys. The silly blue rat game actually made me tear up. I don't know if it's because of nostalgia for these characters, or if it's because of my new niece that I would do literally anything for, or if it's because I'm just a crybaby anyway, but this one did it for me. If they continue on with this story, like I hope they will, I cannot wait to see how this beautiful journey will continue. Ian Flynn should write literally every Sonic game story from now until the end of days. And the performances, yeah. For the first time in forever, I heard a good Sonic voice from Roger. The direction he was given this time was fantastic. He actually feels like a hero that's doing his best against oppressive odds. He finally feels like Sonic. Same with Mike Pollock as Eggman. I've always loved this guy, but in this game, his somber tone with Sage speaks volumes. But his boisterous laughs aren't totally gone either. It's a testament to Ian's writing and the performances, just how right these characters constantly feel. The soundtrack, it's a bit of a mixed bag for me. Music is highly subjective, obviously, but there are a few tracks I genuinely do love from Frontiers. However, there are also no tracks that I really can't stand. The highlights are obviously the Titans. Undefeatable, Break Through It All, and Find Your Flame are all now forever in my playlist. Metalcore or post-hardcore, whatever you want to call it, this is the kind of music I listen to in my free time. Some of these songs feel like they were designed specifically for me, and I love them so much. And the full version of the title song, I'm Here, get out of here. What a great track. All of the vocal themes are genuinely amazing, and I think the only thing keeping them from the top of my list is nostalgia for Adventure 1. I can't recall anything from the mini-bosses or just regular battle themes though, I'll let that speak for itself. The ambient pieces that play during exploration on the islands are alright, but nothing I think I'll remember. Big's fishing minigame has this chill step that I think I will be using in many videos to come. Then we come to Cyberspace. And it's not really my cup of tea. I don't hate any of them, but the electronic sound isn't really what I connect with. I can respect it, and I actually do like 2-Force Track, but I didn't click with any of the others. The visuals that accompany the music are very nice to look at though. There are moments of genuine beauty on the Starfall Islands. You're blazing by everything so often that it's kind of hard to appreciate, but it is there. The graphical pop-in, especially on Ares Island, makes it harder to appreciate though. But I think the game is overall really nice to look at. I wish that they didn't put these stupid black borders on the screen for cutscenes though. I actually want to recommend something for you for your first or even second playthrough of this game. If you can help it, I would recommend getting the game on PC. Of course, modding support could lead to more content down the road, but there are several quality of life tweaks that fans have already cooked up for this game. The removal of those black bars in cutscenes for one, and there's even a mod for improved physics, giving better control over your jumps and removing the delay for the homing attack, making for much snappier runs in cyberspace and even in the open world. And I think I just saw another mod that adds momentum to the game as well, so that's really cool. These aren't exactly definitive improvements, but I do think there's a good argument for people to get the game on PC as opposed to other platforms. Alright, I think I've rambled on enough now. I just really wanted to be thorough in explaining what I think this game gets right. I don't think there was anything that I found particularly wrong in Frontiers, and that's surprising to say for a modern Sonic game. We usually have to deal with elements dragging down the rest of the experience, but that's not the case here. Exploration is relaxing and fulfilling in its own special way. I was scared that the open world was going to get repetitive on me, but thankfully that wasn't the case. Cyberspace fills the quota of high-speed traditional Sonic stages. Some are better than others, and a lot of them contain lifted level design, but there's nothing inherently wrong with them. And there are genuinely fantastic stages mixed in with them. Combat, my boy, combat! As unnecessary as the extra moves are, I still think it's immensely satisfying to dodge cancel and parry attacks with skill. I never expected fights in Sonic Frontiers to look like this and have this kind of depth, but I am overjoyed with what we got, and I'm grateful for it too. Plus, there's always next time. If Sega and Sonic Team use what they have here and build a sequel to fix and polish the gripes we have, while also contracting Ian Flynn to pen another story that brings me the type of emotions that I felt here, I think it could genuinely be the best Sonic game ever made. Buy Sonic Frontiers. It deserves your time and then some. Again, get it on PC so you can make the journey a little prettier and streamlined if you can help it, but whatever platform you decide on, Sonic Frontiers is going to deliver a great time. As one frontier closes though, a familiar realm awaits. God of War Ragnarok will be up next, and from what I hear, it's quite a long journey. But anyway, I appreciate you for watching. So thanks for stopping by, and have a great day.